Hello friends, this is Reckless Tempest, professional Lab of Legends player. Today I'm going to show you how to become a legendary Lab of Legends icon grinder with my patented secret tips. Let's get into it. The first tip is, keep it cheap because tempo is king. In general, it's best to add cheap cards to your deck, all things being equal. Tempo is king in this format. Everyone has really strong plays early in the game, so it's very easy to get overrun. And typically the easiest way to win is by just overwhelming your opponent with, very strong early game plays. So kind of when you're deciding between cards, if they look close, just always go for the cheaper card. You'll rarely get punished for it. Like for instance, I've never picked a Tryndamere. I don't think I've ever picked anything that costs over 7 mana, and the 7 drop was like a true shot. The second tip is, odd is good. Since you always have the rally attack token on turn 1, that means odd drops are going to be slightly better than evens, assuming, again, the cards are of rough power level. Like things like Zed, are going to be way better than Yasuo, just because Zed's going to be able to attack the first turn, whereas Yasuo won't. Quinn actually is, like, in my opinion, a lot better in lab than, if the token was random and sometimes you play her and you have to wait. The third tip is pick for synergy. I think this is, like, pretty obvious. Try to emphasize synergy when you pick cards or upgrades for cards or units in your deck. A pretty easy example is Braum works super well with, I don't know the name of the upgrade, but it's the one that raises a unit's attack to its health when it attacks. Turning your Braum into a 5/5 challenging power machine seems pretty good, right? The fourth tip is double down. If you can stack up relevant upgrades on the same card, do it. Usually you're going to get paid dividends by just stacking up upgrades onto the same thing. Like, for example, say Mountain Goat, right? If you can get it 1/1 and quick attack, and you'll have 4 Mountain Goats in your deck, that turn 2 play is going to be ridiculously strong, especially because as time goes on, it'll just keep ratcheting up. I know this might seem a little counterintuitive since you actually end up with fewer upgraded cards in your deck overall, because say you have 2 copies of a card, you upgrade it once, you have 3 upgraded copies of a card in your deck, and then if you upgraded another relevant card, you'd have 6 in total. But again, because tempo is king in this format, it's actually more important to just have the strongest plays you can possibly get, the best plays. That's what you want to do. You just want to overwhelm the opponent, especially as you get later on when they can just overwhelm you with like getting a turret every turn or drawing cards and vomiting the board up, or like Victor gets kind of silly if you don't have similarly silly stuff to do against them. The fifth tip is keep track of your health. And the reason this is important is because Nexus damage carries over between fights until you beat a boss, which is going to be every third encounter. So maybe you might want to consider chump blocking, making bad chump blocks in certain games just to preserve your health total, especially if it's you're 2 fights away from getting a heal up or finishing the run. I've seen people just like chump away stuff just to save 4 life, right? And they know they're going to win eventually. They just don't want to take that early damage. Also, another trick you can do is if your deck does have the ability to heal, like with the new Targon Champion's Heal Blade, you can draw out a 1 game because you can't die to decking and your opponent can't die to decking. Get the blades, heal up your squad so you always start every game at 30 life. And that's actually pretty sick because there's a literal perk that heals your Nexus 10 at the start of every round. And if your deck just has that sort of built into it, it's kind of ridiculous if you think about it. And the last tip is plan ahead. The fights are always the same. You're always going to play against the same opponents: Spider, Mistwraiths, Thresh, Vulnerable Thingers, Scargrounds, Sejuani, the Hexcore Foundry deck, Turret Maker, and then lastly Victor. So, if you think your deck is going to have a weakness against an upcoming opponent, right, and you have a pick between cards or upgrades, planning ahead will let you figure out like how to break tiebreakers, because that's usually is what's tricky about building your deck and picking your upgrades is like sometimes you have obvious stuff and that's pretty easy, but it's like when things are kind of close, right? Like for example, I liked taking Homecoming against Sejuani when I was playing a Heimerdinger deck, just because I figured the only way I could lose was them getting a giant overwhelmed creature into play and kind of tempoing me out and just overrunning me. So by putting a very trashy bounce spell into my deck, I just made sure I shored up a weakness and calmly developed the deck throughout the rest of the run. And again, this was picked against all bad cards, right? There was just 3 bad picks, and it's like, alright, we'll take the card that fixes the bad matchup. So there you have it, all 6 of my patented secret tips on how to become a legendary Lab of Legends icon grinder. If I missed something, or if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you found this useful, please consider clicking that like button and subscribing for more sweet Legends of Runeterra content. See you next time.